All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, for those out there who are tired of the SEC overload, they need not tune in to the national championship game this Monday night as we're set to see the Georgia Bulldogs and Alabama Crimson Tide get it on. Now, since the establishment of the college football playoff, the SEC is the only conference to have at least one participant in the playoffs each year. And the SEC is also the only conference to send multiple schools to the playoff in the same years. This is the second time that Georgia and Alabama will meet each other in the playoff. Now, since October 2020, this will also be the third time that Alabama faced Georgia, with while the last two meetings resulting in wins for Alabama both times around by the score of 41 to 24. Now, we saw these two teams face off just last month in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. And as Alabama won, you have to wonder if things are going to be different this time around. Now, overall, Alabama leads the all time series 25 to 4, with 45 wins, 25 losses, and 4 draws. But the Tide have not met the Tide, pardon me, have not lost to the Dogs since Nick Saban's first year at Alabama way back in 2007. And of course, once upon a time, this was a big time matchup in the SEC. But then, with conference expansion, first in the early 90s, with the additions of Arkansas and South Carolina to go from 10 teams to 12, and now with the additions of Texas A&M and Missouri to go from 12 to 14, and then of course with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas in a couple of years ago from 14 to 16, it's a rarity nowadays to see Alabama and Georgia get it on. So when they do, it's very special. And of course, when they get it on, like they hardly get it on in a regular season, but I'm meaning, we always see them, or pretty frequently, rather, should I say, see them meet in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. But nonetheless, this game was a national championship game, so of course it's going to be special. But what Georgia's going to have to do is what they did not do, or what they were unable to do last month in the SEC championship game. Their front seven has to get pressure on Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. Last time around, we saw Georgia take away Alabama's running game with Brian Robinson Jr., and they dared the Heisman Trophy winner to beat them. Then, on top of that, he added another element to what he can do. He could scramble around, and Georgia's defense was not are prepared for that. So this time around, I think what you're going to see more with the Georgia linebackers, they're going to spy on Bryce Young. But what you give up if you're Georgia defensively, if you're spying on Bryce Young, it's more one-on-one matchups for your secondary. And of course, we saw what happened versus Alabama in the SEC championship game as it liked John Mechie prior to the injury, and then of course Jamison Williams went to town. So that's going to be important for this Georgia front seven to get that pressure to help out that back four. But if they don't, Jamison Williams could have another big night. And two guys that I think that people need to key on for this game, that's Slade Bolden and Ja'Cory Brooks at wide receiver. Slade Bolden has been there all season long. He stepped up following the injury to John Mechie, and then of course Ja'Cory Brooks, the freshman at wide receiver. And freshmen at Alabama are a little bit different because they're built a little bit different mentally. Because if you go back to this national championship game a couple of years ago, it was a freshman in Devonta Smith that stepped up and caught the game-winning touchdown from Tua Tagovailoa. So it's a situation where, when you go to Alabama, it's not like you're going there as a freshman to ride the pine. You know that you're going there as a freshman looking to make an impact. So I think this Georgia defense has to be ready for a guy like Ja'Cory Brooks in this game. Now, offensively for Georgia, they must avoid second and third and long situations against this Alabama front seven, because if they are unable to, this defense, which is led by Will Anderson, Henry To'oTo'o, Dallas Turner, and Fedarian Mathis, they're going to lick their chops and they're going to come after you. We saw Will Anderson take over in the second half versus Cincinnati in the semis. And once again, this Georgia offensive line is going to have to account for him. Stetson Bennett in this game. Are we going to see the Stetson Bennett that we saw versus Alabama last month, or are we going to see the Stetson Bennett that we saw against Michigan? And going back to that Michigan game for Georgia, I think what they did was they did a good job offensively, number one, of dictating the pace. They never played behind the chains, and I think that was important for them. They got into a rhythm, and of course, the rest was history. And then on top of that, they took Michigan's two best players, Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabu, out of the game. And then, of course, their skill players went to work. But the difference is Alabama has more skill players on the defensive side of the ball as opposed to Michigan. Then on top of that, Alabama has more team speed at the skill positions on offense, which is going to put some stress on his Georgia defense. And that was one thing that we didn't see, of course, from Michigan in their Orange Bowl defeat to these dogs. Now, defensively for Georgia, N'Kobe Dean and Jordan Davis. And of course, N'Kobe Dean is arguably the best middle linebacker in the country, and he's going to hear his name called very early this spring at the NFL draft. We need to see N'Kobe Dean play like he did against Michigan. N'Kobe Dean played like a man on a mission. He ran from sideline to sideline. He was in pursuit. Wherever Cade McNamara went, N'Kobe Dean was there. Wherever the Michigan running backs went, N'Kobe Dean was there. And then, of course, Jordan Davis up front. He was a non-factor the first time around against Alabama. And a lot of that was due to the fact that Alabama went tempo. They also spread out this Georgia defense. And then on top of that, they put Georgia in formations where they were able to take advantage of their size. So that's going to be interesting to see what the dogs can do this time around as far as making those adjustments so that guys like Jordan Davis and Kobe Dean can have a bigger impact in this game. You look at it right now, I think Alabama's going to once again go tempo, and I think they're going to keep doing it until Georgia can stop them. Now, Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, and you look around the SEC, and there are so many different assistant head coaches that once upon a time, pardon me, head coaches rather, that were once upon a time assistant coaches for Nick Saban in Alabama. Kirby Smart is another one of those. Nick Saban actually lost to an assistant coach this year for the first time as he lost to Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M. Kirby Smart has come up short in these games, and a lot of times he simply, it's a play here or a play there. Where his team is unable to get over the hump. Now, Georgia is a 3-point favorite in this game. And for me, it's one of those, I guarantee you, Nick Saban is selling this to his team. We saw Georgia be a 7-point favorite against Michigan. And of course, they went to town on that one. I think this game is going to be a back and forth affair. I think Georgia is going to be riled up because it's one of those where you consistently get tired of getting beat by a team like Alabama. So what is Georgia going to do about it? But at the end of the day, I simply do not bet against Nick Saban in these situations. You look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young is playing with a maturity well beyond his years. These Alabama
Mhm.
guys know that they have an opportunity to do something very special, which is to repeat as national champions. And a lot of people wrote this Alabama team off early this year, even before the season started, just due to the fact that they lost so much talent to the National Football League last year. And of course, that's darn near the case every year, as you can expect 5 or 6 guys to get drafted in the first round alone from Alabama. But with that said, I'm going to take Alabama on Monday night to repeat as national champions over Georgia by the score of 27-20. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you are on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.